I will read this. This is from Test 65, Section 4. It's question 15. It's a logical reasoning question. Oh, yeah. So you can actually find this in the free trial of the Demon, if you want to do that. Anyways, copyright was originally the grant of a temporary government-supported monopoly on copying a work. Okay, it's a little wordy, but as I sit here and think about it, it's like, okay, so they're telling us what they think of copyright. They think that copyright is this thing that's, one, it's granted by the government, and two, it gives you a monopoly. In other words, you're the only player in a certain space for your work.
And one thing that I'm keying in on is the use of originally,
Yep.
because they're not telling you necessarily what it is. They're telling you what it originally was.
Sure. Excellent point.
Which now I'm going to use my reading comprehension skills, which number one tip for reading comp, try to predict what you think is going to come next. When I hear it was originally this, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Well,
Yep.
what is it now?
Now, or what do you
Has it
think it is
changed?
now? Yep.
Okay.
Next sentence. Its sole purpose was to encourage the circulation of ideas by giving authors the opportunity to derive a reasonable financial reward from their works. As I read this, it said its sole purpose was to encourage the circulation of ideas, right? And how did it do that? By giving them a financial incentive. I don't necessarily agree with that because it's such a strong claim that it was its sole purpose, but this feels like a premise to me. So I'm just going to be like, okay, apparently that's what its sole purpose was. I don't know whether that's actually true, but it
It is
doesn't really
kind of weird,
matter.
right? Because it's like, well, the end was this, but the means were this other thing. And so it necessarily, it's kind of contradicting itself, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, the sole purpose was to encourage the circulation of ideas. By what now? How did it do that? Oh, well, it made it so that the creators could get a reasonable financial reward for their works. So wait a second. Copyright, which is the opposite of free circulation of ideas, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, they're kind of talking around in circles.
Mm-hmm.
The sole purpose was to encourage the circulation of ideas by making it so that nobody else could circulate these ideas without paying the author.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, it's
Wh-
all
Which
historical still, right?
which I'm deducing from my own real world experience. Like, okay, I get it. Like, you are limiting the circulation of ideas by only allowing the author to do that, but you're assuming that if you hadn't have done this, then the author wouldn't have created the ideas in the first place, right?
Right.
So
And
that's better.
it's
Something
totally,
is
and
better than nothing.
I like that you're bringing in outside background knowledge, right? Like many people know that the copyright on Mickey Mouse has been extended over and over and over again, far beyond the life of Walt Disney, who created Mickey Mouse. Now, how the hell does that give Walt Disney the opportunity to derive a reasonable financial reward from his brilliant creation of Mickey Mouse? I think most reasonable people agree that that's a perverse interpretation of, if the sole purpose of copyright was to encourage the circulation of ideas, then surely Mickey Mouse should be out of copyright now that we're 40 years or whatever after Walt Disney dropped dead.
Yeah.
That's
And
background
the
understanding
idea
of
has
this.
been created. Yeah.
Okay, so I still feel like the other shoe is going to drop here, right?
Yep.
They got to say this isn't the case anymore.
However, there you go. The shoe is starting to drop.
Yep.
However, copyright sometimes goes beyond its original purpose, since sometimes, and then we have a blank line here.
Mm.
And whenever you have a blank line, You just have to try to fill it in. It's not that hard. Um,
It's a complete the argument question.
oh, if only I had known that before I had read this passage.
Also, there's no such thing as a complete the argument question. Not really in
Yeah.
any useful way. I mean, Ben is
Yeah.
correct that it's not that hard. You do have to just sort of fill in the blank. But it's not about like you inventing something new. It's about, hey, were you following along with their logic? What's going on here?
Yeah.
And I do want to call attention here to one key word in the argument,
Hmm.
because that one word tells us that this is a strengthening question.
Sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're looking for a premise. They're not looking for a conclusion. This is not a must be true question or a main conclusion question. They're looking for a premise as
Yep.
indicated by the word since. What's going to fill in this blank is something that supports what came before the since.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to prove that copyright sometimes goes beyond its original purpose, which they have described for us kind of at length, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 full sentences about the original purpose of copyright.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're telling us that, hey, we got a problem. Copyright sometimes goes beyond its original purpose since blank.
So they said its sole purpose was to encourage the circulation of ideas by giving authors the opportunity to derive a reasonable financial reward from their works. So, in my mind, any answer that shows us trying to accomplish something other than encouraging the circulation of ideas or doing something other than helping these authors derive a reasonable is kind of an interesting word there too, financial reward. Now it's going beyond what it said in that second sentence. And I'm looking at that answer as a potential option. So my prediction here would be sometimes it does more than encourage the circulation of ideas. It also encourages enterprise or something like, I don't know. So I'm just guessing like
My
something more
prediction
than this.
here would have to do with my background knowledge of the fucked up copyright problem. I mean, this is something that many people understand. Like this is something that many people like. It's actually taken from relatively recent news. The Disney example is perfect here.
Mm-hmm.
Like if copyright's purpose really was just to encourage the circulation of ideas by giving authors the opportunity to derive a reasonable financial reward from their works, then how the fuck does it make sense that we keep extending the copyright on Mickey Mouse so that the Disney Corporation can get multi-billions of dollars off of this work decades after Walt Disney died? Right?
Well, that
So,
example also shows that the sole purpose was not just to encourage the circulation of ideas, but to
well,
make more money, right?
maybe it was when it first, maybe it was. I'm granting their premise that the original purpose of copyright was this.
Yeah.
But the endless extensions of copyright on certain creations clearly is not meeting that original purpose.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's outside information. Am I allowed to bring in outside information?
You're not allowed to add outside information to the passage as if it were stated there.
Okay.
But by all means, you have to bring that information into play to be the best you can be at evaluating the legitimacy of what was said.
And it's a strengthened question. The
Yeah.
question says the conclusion of the argument is most strongly supported if which one of the following completes the passage. We could
So what
rearrange
new
that.
information? Yeah. Which
Right.
one following if true? Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If one of these 5 is true, we're going to support their conclusion that copyright sometimes goes beyond its original purpose. So my Walt Disney example, if I go down into these answer choices and I see something about the Disney Corporation has been able to successfully extend copyright on Mickey Mouse 40 years after Walt Disney was on the ground, that's not me bringing in outside information. that's the question, that's the answer saying something that, if it were true, would strengthen the argument. So they're
Yeah.
asking, so it's like, I am using my brain. I am using my
Mm-hmm.
outside knowledge of the world,
Mm-hmm.
but I have to find it in the answer choices. And because it's a strengthen question, I get to assume the truth of that answer when I pick it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if I see Walt Disney down here, that's the answer. All right.
Answer choice A says sometimes publication of copyrighted works is not the only way to circulate ideas. Just because there are other ways to circulate ideas doesn't have anything to do with copyright. Copyright could be one way, and
Yeah.
its sole purpose could be to circulate ideas. The fact
Notice,
that
I want to point out what you did there, Ben. You're not arguing with that answer choice. You're accepting that answer choice as a fact. You're like, huh. So if sometimes publication of copyrighted works is not the only way to circulate ideas, so if there are other ways to circulate ideas besides publishing a copyrighted work, if there are other ways to circulate ideas, you're accepting that idea as a
Mhm,
fact, and then
mhm,
you're considering whether it supports the conclusion that copyright sometimes goes beyond its original purpose, and you're determining, no, it doesn't do shit.
yeah,
So you're not arguing about the truth of that answer, because this is a strengthen question. It says which
yeah.
one of the following, if true, is going to strongly support the conclusion, most strongly support the conclusion. And you're going, okay, well, A, even if it's a fact, who cares? Good.
B, authors are willing to circulate their works even without any financial reward. Um, the fact that authors are sometimes willing to do this doesn't mean that the copyright has gone beyond its original purpose. It just means that it wasn't always necessary to accomplish that goal. But did it accomplish any other goals? As far as I know, it could still be accomplishing its goal and nothing else, even though some people don't need it to accomplish the goal.
Sometimes a student will chime in class and go, but isn't it also true that no author would actually do that? I mean, what author would be willing to circulate their works even without financial reward? I mean, isn't that another reason why B is wrong?
Yeah. And there they're going after the truth of the answer choice, which doesn't matter.
Right. That's where I have to say, thank you, but absolutely not. You
Yeah.
no, that is not why B is wrong. We have to accept B as a fact. Authors are, in fact, willing to circulate their works even without any financial reward. Whether or not you
Yep.
think that's true in real life, and it's probably not true in many cases in real life, probably
Mm-hmm.
sometimes true, probably not true a lot as well. Who cares? I'm accepting that as a fact. Authors are willing to circulate their works even without any financial reward. Does that strengthen the idea that copyright sometimes goes beyond its original purpose? No, it's a total whiff. It has nothing to do with it.
C, sometimes authors are unable to find a publisher for their copyrighted works. Okay, so sometimes they're unable to fulfill, it's unable to circulate ideas. That doesn't mean it went beyond its purpose and did something else. It just failed.
That's you not being a good enough writer to find a publisher, or not hustling enough to find a publisher. Who cares whether authors sometimes can't publish, or who cares if authors all the time can't find a publisher? Has
Yeah.
nothing to do with whether copyright is or is not fulfilling its original purpose.
Yeah. D, there is no practical way to enforce copyrights. Um, okay, again, the question is, did it go beyond its original purpose? In other words, did it do something other than encourage the circulation of ideas by giving authors some financial reward? If there's no way to enforce this thing, that again just says to me, well, maybe it didn't succeed, but that doesn't mean that it went beyond. So, um, again, I don't think this is helpful, and I don't think it's saying that much.
Well, I guess I think you're right about all that, but I also think that it if anything, it seems like a weakener more than a strengthener. We're trying to prove that copyright has gone beyond its original purpose. D says there's no practical way to enforce a copyright. If
Yeah,
there's no
I guess
practical
that's what
way
I'm
to
trying to say is that maybe it didn't succeed, right? Like, if anything, it's saying it did less, not more than.
right. So frequently wrong answers on a strengthen question will cut in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, D looks like a weakener. It's clearly out.
Yep. E, copyrights hold for many years after an author's death. Okay. It sounds like it's doing more than what it originally intended, because now there's like, how is that providing a reasonable reward for the author? They're not even benefiting from it anymore. Someone else is. This is the answer that goes into your prediction. But even if people didn't make that prediction, the point is that something else is going on here. It's going beyond what it originally did. And that's all I'm looking for.
I think many smart people, many educated people, people who follow the news, people with an interest in legal matters, maybe you've taken an intellectual property class as an undergraduate, maybe you're just interested in these matters, you've worked in tech or something. I think many people are going to predict this answer that, hey, we know that Walt Disney is still getting paid decades after he died
Yeah.
for how is that possibly fulfilling this original purpose, the sole purpose originally
Yeah.
of copyright. And it's a debate that we continue to have, probably we will continue to have forever, because Disney has billions of dollars to try to enforce their copyrights. But so I think half of the people who are going to get this one right probably predicted something along those lines. But even if you didn't make that prediction, if we accept as true the answer E, that copyrights hold for many years after an author's death, and if we accept as true that the sole purpose of copyright was to encourage the circulation of ideas by giving authors to the opportunity to derive a reasonable financial reward from their works, Walt Disney ain't getting this financial reward anymore, according to E.
Yeah.
I mean, or it's his estate or his corporation or whatever that's getting these rewards. How is that the author getting a reasonable financial reward? So even if you hadn't made the prediction, yeah, if E fills in that blank, then it sure as hell looks like copyright is going beyond its original purpose as defined by the passage.
Yeah. Cool.